Okay, guys, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Now, fasten your seatbelts. Here we go. Okay, guys, I'm back, and it's January 25th, is it? My gosh, I don't know what day it is. It is. It's the 25th, all day, till tomorrow. When rumor has it that it'll be the 26th. Don't tell anybody. Anyway, it's Saturday, and it's 9:44 p.m., and I'm ready to do a couple videos tonight. I hope you are as well. Now, these are going to be I guess, for lack of a better word, irregular videos. You know, the regular videos are those that I do on news and so forth. Well, I'm covering two videos tonight, and neither of them are regular. I do have some people to thank, but I'm going to wait for the first time that I will be doing a regular video, news and such, and that will be tomorrow. So I will thank the people that I need to thank at that time, but these are two videos. This one will be dedicated to what is happening in China, and the next one will be catching us up with Q. So we're gonna just jump right in here, and because there's a lot of people that don't normally view the channel, listening when we cover irregular topics, that's why I want to leave the thank yous and everything to the regular videos that always attract the regular listeners. So there you go. That's my explanation. I hope it makes sense anyway. And we're going to jump right in here because this is, I have noticed over the last few days a massive campaign to put out disinformation about this virus. And it's alarming to me that so many people are willing to just say, it's nothing, we don't have to worry about it. Oh yeah, sure, this is going to be serious, just like Ebola, just like SARS. No, it's nothing like those two things. This is the first time ever we've had a quarantine of one major city of 8 million people, let alone the number that there are now. I'm not sure. I think it's up to 9, but I know it's over 50 million people are in quarantine. Please tell me when that has ever happened in history. You can't, because it hasn't. So to all these people that would like to say, oh, it's business as usual. No, it's not. And okay, fine. We can all say, oh, we don't have to worry. It's over there. Well, unfortunately, or fortunately, however you want to look at it, this world is very small. We're just a plane ride away to the ends of the earth. And I know they'd like to say that all flights have stopped, but there was actually one coming in from Wuhan today that was headed for San Francisco. Hello? That's probably the worst possible place a virus could hit. So anyway, I'm going to get into this. I'm going to read through some sources and so forth. I don't want to get into fear porn, but on the other hand, I do want to educate us on what is happening, what is really happening. Now, before I get into it, I also want to ask if any of you, now, there is one case confirmed now in Toronto, which is not far from me. There was 5 people, I think, in Montreal being tested. I haven't had any word about that yet, but there are, I think, 60 some confirmed cases in the US now. And, you know, there's a lot of, here in Canada, there's a large Chinese population, and that's good. We welcome them here. They have brought nothing but good to our country. And that's not the issue. But what I'm hoping to find is a listener that has relatives over there. Or maybe they're visiting from over there. I don't know. But if there's anyone out there that would be willing to talk to me, your name will not be mentioned. I promise you. And my word is good. I will not mention your name. But if there is anyone that would be willing to talk to me that has relatives over there or are themselves a resident from that area, please get in touch with me because I would love to talk to you. And you may be a business professional too, because there's all sorts of businesses that fly back and forth. Wuhan being a huge populous area. I think someone said it was one of the top 4 cities in China. So, and of course now it has spread to Hong Kong, Shanghai, all over. There's many countries reporting this now. So let's just get into this and let's get an idea of what's really happening. All right. Now, this is the first one that I wanted you to see because it's alarming. This is by Zero Hedge. Thermonuclear pandemic level bad. Harvard epidemiologist warns viral outbreak might get a lot worse. I don't know how he can say might. It will get a lot worse. It will, because really there's not much containing it. I know they are taking measures. I know they have quarantined cities. Now today they have actually bulldozed any traffic, like any roads out of the city into the city. They've put barriers across. They've actually bulldozed large amounts of sand and whatever, so people cannot get through. And I believe all personal transportation has been banned in these cities, which, I mean, the buses are shut down, the trains are shut down, the airport's shut down, or is supposed to be shut down anyway. And now they cannot use any personal transportation. People are being warned to stay home. So let's get into this. As we've stepped up our coverage of the nCoV coronavirus outbreak over the last week, some on Twitter have published what we feel are exaggerated criticisms accusing us of fear-mongering. No, my experience has been, and I've been out there all day today. All day. I've been looking. I've even been in all Chinese forums, painstakingly taking the Chinese and translating it into English via Google Translate, which is imperfect, but better than nothing, trying to find out what is really happening. We are not being told the truth. In fact, there is so much propaganda, a lot of it probably coming from the Chinese government, and I will show you an example of that later on as well, of propaganda that is very easy to spot. So anyway, while we understand that the information we've shared can be distressing, we'd like to take a moment to remind readers that all of the information and research we have cited is legitimate, having originally been conducted by credible epidemiologists like the UK's Jonathan Reed. The fact is, the Chinese government hasn't been nearly as transparent as it promised, and it seems like the more we learn about the true scope of this outbreak, the more concerned we become. And quite frankly, the Chinese government does not have a history of being transparent at all. In fact, the first few days of this virus was spent arresting those who were writing about it on social media. That time could have been much better spent. But there you have it. They are not being forthright. That is what I'm hearing everywhere. The reality is that, as the architect told Neo in The Matrix Reloaded, denial is the most predictable of human responses. And while the world's public health authorities certainly have had time to get their arms around this outbreak before it becomes a massive global pandemic with deadly consequences, the WHO's dithering response the other day, asserting that they don't have enough evidence of human-to-human secondary transmission to declare a global health emergency, certainly doesn't inspire confidence. Now that we have that out of the way, let's move on to Dr. Eric Feigl-Ding, a public health scientist on the faculty of Harvard. He should know what he's talking about. A few days ago, Dr. Not sure how to pronounce that, Feigl-Ding tweeted that he was really deeply worried about this new coronavirus outbreak because the virus seemed to have an upward infection trajectory curve much steeper than SARS. I don't think we've ever seen anything like this. And if you see people saying, oh, you're much more likely to die from the flu, and, the flu is far more deadly than, okay, that's disinformation. And it's being spread at a rapid pace. better to believe that it's worse than it is than to believe that it's not as bad and it's worse. See, if we believe right away it's really bad, then we're not surprised when we find out, yes, indeed, this is really horrendously bad. But if you think, oh, we're safe, it's all right, it's no worse than the flu, and then you find out otherwise, yeah. So I think that we're going along a safe trajectory ourselves, if you ask me. I'll be honest, as an epidemiologist, I'm really worried about this new coronavirus outbreak. One, the virus has an upward infection trajectory curve much steeper than SARS. Two, it can be transmitted person to person before symptoms appear, i.e., it is silently contagious. Yes, and actually, they want to calm us all down by showing them taking everybody's temperature on the airline. Well, first of all, that doesn't do anything because you could already be infected and not have a fever yet. The fever presents itself much later in the incubation period. So you could be contagious for many days before ever showing the signs of a fever. So yes, while it's comforting to see all those pictures of everyone having their temperatures taken while they get on an airplane, it's comforting to think that that's working. It's not. It won't. Not only that, but here's everybody wearing these masks and the virus can get in through your eyes. We already know that because there's one doctor dead because of it. So, yeah, and the other thing is, and there was a nurse on I guess it was the last video I did on this, that said, yes, you're right, those masks are ineffective because what happens is they work for a few minutes, but they're not intended to keep out that kind of a virus. They're intended to keep you from when you cough, not to spit on people and spread germs that way. And so once you've been breathing into it for a while, and if you're working around like these doctors are feverishly, then it's gonna get moist and wet and damp and not be any good at all. So, yeah, some people are doubling a mask. I don't know. I think they mentioned an N95 mask. Now, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that is what they said you need for this. And you need to have your eyes protected as well. So, it can transfer person to person. Not only that, if you're in the incubation period, you're not showing a fever, so you're just walking around and you've maybe gotten off a flight from Wuhan or somewhere in China and you're just walking around. You have no idea that you're infected, but everywhere you're breathing, you're infecting people because whatever you're breathing out, that virus will stay in the air for 24 to 48 hours, which means you could be long gone. You could be home in bed sleeping. And let's say I just inadvertently walk through where you were breathing and I breathe in the virus. Now I've got it too. Now, when I'm breathing in and out, I'm spreading it. So this is a lot worse than we're being told. And honestly, I know people are like, oh, you're just, fear porn, whatever. Okay, whatever. All right. If you think this is fear porn, get out. Go find another video. Really. We don't want you here because this is for the grown-ups. Okay, if you are logical and you can think this through and put two and two together, then you're welcome here. You're absolutely welcome with open arms. But if you're going to get on the forum and start saying, oh, this is ridiculous, it's no worse than the flu. Well, first of all, I'm going to delete you because I think this is dangerous. I think it's dangerous to be spreading that kind of disinformation. So there you go. I'm sorry that I'm just so forthright, but you know what? I don't need clicks that bad. I really don't. I have a good core set of listeners here that, depend on me to tell the truth. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to tell the truth. So, if it means I get less clicks, okay, that's all right. I'd rather be able to lay my head on the pillow at night and be able to sleep comfortably. So, anyway. On Friday, the doctor, a well-respected epidemiologist who has worked as an advisor to the World Health Organization, tried his hand at a few projections based on an infection rate much higher than the R0 rating of 1.4 to 2.5, recently estimated by the WHO, I don't trust. As we explained last night, when determining the infectious potential of a virus, arguably the most important variable is the RO, or R0. This represents the average number of secondary cases resulting from every new infection in an entirely susceptible population. And I would say that we're all susceptible to this. Of course, government interventions and more vigilant hygiene practices, once the public is aware of the threat, will help Lois. The viruses are not variable. But remember, nCoV, the WHO's name for the virus, has already been quietly spreading around the people of Wuhan for weeks. And as Dr. Feigl Ding explains, early evidence would suggest that nCoV is contagious before symptoms appear. Last night, we published the findings of a team of UK why can't I say that? Epidemiological. I know how to say it, but it's just, I've got this little brain fade there right for a second, but I'm back now. Researchers led by Jonathan Reed published a paper with 4 colleagues that estimated the transmission parameters for the Wuhan coronavirus and calculates that the true R0 of 2019 nCoV is between 3.6 to 4, or roughly the same as SARS, and reaches a conclusion about spread of the coronavirus epidemic that is frankly terrifying. With an R0 of 3.8, the virus could eventually cause hundreds of thousands of deaths in China alone. I think it's probably more than that. They're saying, what are they saying now? 36 people have died from it. Bull crap. You do not try to build a hospital in 6 days. Now they're trying to build another one. That's in addition to the first hospital that they're trying to build in 6 days. Now they're trying to build another one. They've quarantined over 50 million people. You can't go out, you can't get in. All the shops are closed. Where are they going to get groceries? Where are they going to get, the hospitals are overwhelmed, completely overwhelmed. So this is unprecedented in the history of the world. It's unprecedented. And you don't take major precautions like this for 36 people dead. I mean, we have to be logical here. Who does that? Who bulldozes big heaps of dirt and sand and everything on the roadways so no cars can pass? Who shuts down the train stations, the bus stations, tells people to stay home and they can't even use their personal transportation? Who closes down the shops and the schools and the malls and retail? I mean, where are these people working? They're not. So how are they getting money? And where are they buying food? Think about this. It's unprecedented, ever. And you really think that they do that for 36 people? Because, call me crazy, but I don't think so. I don't think so. And this is not brain surgery. It's just common sense. Anyway, so let's come down here. So this is the R0 of some diseases. Now, I would assume that the higher the R0, the less deadly it is. I'm going to assume that. Please correct me. There may be doctors and nurses that are watching, and if I'm saying something wrong, please correct me so that I can correct it in the next video, because I don't want to be giving disinformation, and I don't want to be adding to that at all. So I do not mind being corrected in the least. So, in fact, it's not simply terrifying. With an R0 of 3.8, this virus could be thermonuclear pandemic level bad. Have you ever heard that about anything ever in your lifetime? Because I sure haven't. Thermonuclear pandemic level bad. Wow. But there's all these little shills running around saying, oh, please, you have more chance of dying from the flu. Well, it hasn't hit here yet. There's only 62 cases in the US. We only know of one in Canada, but I'm sure that there are more. So let's look at this. This is by Dr. Eric Feigl-Ding, Holy Mother of God. The new coronavirus is a 3.8. How bad is that? Reproductive R0 value. It is thermonuclear pandemic level bad. Never seen an actual virality coefficient outside of Twitter in my entire life. I'm not exaggerating. So there you go. It says, as Dr. Feigl-Ding goes on to explain, using Reed's finding as a jumping off point, the 4,000 number being kicked around by some scientists as the true number of viral cases in Wuhan might be much too low. By early February, the doctor warned that nearly 250,000 Chinese could be infected. So yeah, that's, we estimate that only 5.1% of infections in Wuhan are identified. And by the 21st of January, a total of 11,341 people, prediction interval 9,217 to 14,245, had been infected in Wuhan since the start of the year. Should the epidemic continue unabated in Wuhan, and he continues down here, we predict the epidemic in Wuhan will be substantially larger by the 4th of February, 191,529 infections, prediction interval 132,751 to 273,649. Infection will be established in other Chinese cities and importations to other countries will be more frequent. Our model suggests that. Travel restrictions from and to Wuhan City are likely to be effective in halting transmission across China with a 99% effective reduction in travel. The size of the epidemic outside of Wuhan may only be reduced by 24.9% on February. On the 4th of February, our findings are critically dependent on the assumptions underpinning our model and the timing and reporting of confirmed cases, which we're not getting the report of confirmed cases. And you know why? Do you know why the numbers are so low? Because they're not counting people that are dying from pneumonia. Well, what does this virus cause? Pneumonia. Hello? Why do you think the numbers are so low? They can't be the real numbers. No, China doesn't want people to know how bad it really is because, number one, it doesn't reflect favorably on the country, and you know how absolutely anal they are about that. And two, they don't want to appear weak because then they could look like, you know, hey, we could take them over now while their pants are down, which wouldn't be a good idea for anybody to invade right now. Anyway, a basic reproductive number for this 2019 nCoV outbreak is higher compared to the other emergent coronaviruses, suggesting that containment or control of this pathogen may be substantially more difficult and cannot be stopped by containment alone. It cannot be stopped by containment alone. A 99% quarantine lockdown containment of Wuhan will not even reduce the epidemic spread by even a third in the next 2 weeks. Thus, I really hate to be the epidemiologist who has to admit this, but we are potentially faced with possibly an unchecked pandemic that the world has not seen since the 1918 Spanish influenza. Let's hope it doesn't reach that level, but we live in a modern world with faster transportation and than in 1918. WHO and CDC need to declare public health emergency ASAP. And reference for the R0 attack rate, reproductive coefficient of 3.8 and the 99% containment models came from this paper. And we're not going to read that tonight because we have too much to go through. But of course, I will make all my links available on Patreon. What is the typical R0 attack rate for the seasonal flu in most years? It's around an R0 of 1.28. The 2009 flu pandemic, it has an R naught of 1.48. The 1918 Spanish flu, 1.80. This new Wuhan coronavirus reproductive value again, R naught equals 3.8. Okay, so I guess the lower the R naught is, the safer it is. The higher, the more, damaging it is, the more it can spread. So yeah, if you think about the Spanish flu, which I'm not sure how many it killed, but a lot, that was 1.8 and this is 3.8. And it went around the world like that. All right. Now, and it gets even worse. The Lancet now reports that the coronavirus is contagious even when no symptoms, specifically crucial to isolate patients, quarantine contacts as early as possible because asymptomatic infection appears possible. And let's pretend the 3.8 estimate is too high. There's unpublished estimates of 2.5. Even if this virus R naught is 2.5, that's still 2 times higher than seasonal flu's 1.28 referenced above and higher than the 1918 Spanish flu pandemic of 1.80 that killed millions. So 2.8 is still super bad, folks. My response to some people who think I'm trying to stoke fear, I'm a Harvard-trained scientist with a doctorate in epidemiology and the youngest dual doctoral grad from Harvard. Here are my responses. So, it says, let me see. Some folks think I'm trying to incite fear. I'm not trying. I'm a scientist. This coronavirus, Wuhan coronavirus, is serious. Over 50 million people are quarantined. Plus, case counts will go up much more. Predict who will declare emergency. Let's hope for the best, prepared for the worst. And that is what we all should be doing. We should be hoping and praying for the best and expecting and preparing for the worst. And small note, while there were reports of SARS having a 0.49 after containment started, a WHO cited expert who said SARS has initial R naught of 2.9, then 2.0 to 3.5, which fell to 0.4 after quarantine, but SARS is more symptomatic than this Wuhan virus, which means it can be detected earlier. I mean, if you're walking around and you're asymptomatic, nobody knows you have it, including you. And you're still breathing, otherwise you wouldn't be walking around. So you're breathing that out, and there are people that are coming behind you and breathing it in. They too will get it. All right. Now, there is considerable uncertainty associated with the outbreak at this early stage, and yet you tweeted, Holy Mother of God, a public health scientist should know better than to be an alarmist. Very disappointing. And that is in response to Stephen Goldstein in one estimate with a sketchily Maro CI that the authors have already revised down. Other estimates are lower. This is not 1918. You know that. Stop trying to scare people and log off, please. Thanks. Well, here you go. No, it's not 1918. Were people flying around the world in 1918? No, they weren't. They were traveling, but it was a much slower form of travel. Much slower. Not everybody had cars. There wasn't public transportation as such. Today's world is very tiny. There are people that may work there and live somewhere else, but they may go back and forth. They are getting on airplanes all the time. When I was a little girl, taking a ride on an airplane was a big deal. I mean, and then when I, got to be an adult, it was like, well, I did a lot of traveling, so I was on an airplane all the time. But when I was little, that was a big deal. I remember I was like maybe 15 or 16 when I had my first ride in an airplane. And, I should say a commercial airplane. That was a big deal. So, yeah, people in 1918, the world was smaller and more contained. So, yeah, if it could go around the world then, it can definitely go around the world today. Fast, very fast. Look at how fast the spread has been to other countries. So, some folks think I'm trying to incite fear. I'm not trying. I'm a scientist. This coronavirus, Wuhan, okay. And he says, Hong Kong has 5 confirmed cases of the novel coronavirus. That's not good. And of course, this isn't 1918. Medical technology is far more advanced. In the event of a mass infection, a vaccine could be found to save the day, but that doesn't mean we should simply dismiss the more dire projections out of hand. This virus could still leave thousands dead before it peters out. Thousands? Are you kidding? I believe there are thousands dead now. They're not even counting death by pneumonia. And what about all the people that have died at home? And they're being loaded on trucks and incinerated, from what I've heard. Now, that could be wrong, because I've heard that hearsay from the city itself, that they are just collecting bodies and incinerating them right away because they don't want the body to spread more disease. So they don't know. They don't know the real numbers. There could be a ton of people in some of those apartments and stuff that are dead. They don't know, because everything's shut down. They're not going to be expecting these people at work or wherever. So how do we know how many people are actually dead inside their apartments? Well, I guess in time they'll know because of the smell. But, and I'm not trying to be disgusting. I'm just trying to be realistic here. All right, now let's oops, sorry about that. And let's look at this. U.S. to evacuate its citizens from Wuhan, China. That's from the Wall Street Journal. Now, do you think that they would take such measures if this wasn't serious? If this was just like the flu? I don't think so. I think they would tell their citizens to shelter in place and, to monitor it. Really, they don't do this normally. So, says Reuters, the United States is arranging a charter flight on Sunday to bring its citizens and diplomats back from the Chinese city of Wuhan, epicenter of the outbreak of the new coronavirus, the Wall Street Journal reported on Saturday. The plane, with around 230 people, will carry diplomats from the U.S. consulate as well as U.S. citizens and their families, the journal reported, citing a person familiar with the operation. Washington was given approval for the operation from China's foreign ministry and other government agencies following negotiations in recent days, the newspaper said. A spokesperson for the U.S. Embassy in Beijing said that on Thursday, the State Department had ordered the departure of family members and all U.S. government employees at its Wuhan consulate, but declined to comment on the report that other U.S. citizens would be evacuated from the city. The decision to move U.S. consulate staff and families was due to the outbreak of the coronavirus and logistical disruptions stemming from restricted transportation and overwhelmed hospitals in the city of Wuhan, the spokesman said in a statement emailed to Reuters. So, yeah, really, I mean, if everything was okay and it was just a little bit of the flu, don't you think the U.S. would say, you're okay there at the embassy? They would say shelter in place. They probably have a whole lot of supplies there. And I just don't think that they would actually go through the negotiation process with China to get these people out. Do you? I mean, again, let's think logically. All right. Let's go on. All right, now. Yeah, I'm not sure about this, to tell you the truth. I'm not going to play it because I don't think it's properly verified. So I'm going to skip that and let's come back. We've got lots of other things that are, so I don't need to get into speculation. And there's just something about that didn't seem right to me. All right. And let's look at this. By Natural News. I love that website. No, really, I do. Computer simulation suggests 65 million could die from Chinese coronavirus. 65 million. That's right, 65 million. And personally, I think that is a little conservative, but who am I? I'm not a health professional. I'm not the daughter of a health professional. I have taken a whole lot of university courses on medicine, though, but that doesn't make me anything. A few months ago, a scientist at the Johns Hopkins Center for Health Security just so happened to create a computer model mapping the potential global impact of a hypothetical disease outbreak, almost exactly like the one that's right now happening with Chinese coronavirus, with it determined shockingly, is that as many as 65 million people could end up dying from this type of disease in a relatively short period of time. Eric Toner, the guy behind the research, predicted that this monumental death toll would probably occur within 18 months of the first known case of the infection. Within the first 6 months, he further predicted every country in the world would have the disease, or at least some form of it, seeing as how coronavirus is constantly mutating. And what's it going to mutate into? Is it going to get worse? Doesn't seem like they ever mutate into something beneficial. When have you ever known a virus to mutate into something beneficial? It doesn't. All right, I have thought for a long time that the most likely virus that might cause a new pandemic would be the coronavirus, Toner stated, prior to the current coronavirus outbreak that's now being widely reported. We don't know how contagious it is, he further added. We know that it is being spread person to person, but we don't know to what extent. An initial first impression is that this is significantly milder than SARS, so that's reassuring. On the other hand, it may be more transmissible than SARS, at least in the community setting. Well, I'm going to show you a video that was taken of a person convulsing, literally convulsing with a high fever. And, you know, there are people that are, the coughing is causing their lungs to rupture or whatever and causing intense bleeding. So I don't know that I agree that this is milder than SARS, seeing as we're seeing videos of people just dropping dead in the streets. Yeah. So, utilizing a fictional virus called CAPS for his computer analysis, Toner plugged in parameters to make it resistant to all modern vaccines and deadlier than SARS, which actual coronavirus is now turning out to be. There you go. Rather than originating it in China, however, he had the fictional CAPS virus start in a Brazilian pig farm. Toner had CAPS start out small, initially affecting only farmers in close proximity to the infected swine, but eventually it naturally spread to crowded and more impoverished areas, only to eventually reach the big cities, other countries, and everything in between. Toner's simulation also showed flights being canceled, travel bookings plummeting by almost half, and people spreading false information on social media about the disease's progression. All of this and more eventually triggered a global financial crisis in the model, with worldwide gross domestic product free-falling by 11% and stock markets plummeting by anywhere from 20 to 40%. Right on schedule, Toner's predictions included urgent warnings about fast-tracking the production of new vaccines in this new age of epidemics. By the time the number of coronavirus infections reach into the thousands, Toner predicted major economic impacts would be felt all around the world. This is why he wants to see new vaccine production fast-tracked, which would seem to be the real-life impetus behind nearly all modern-day disease scares. If we could make it so that we could have a vaccine within months rather than years or decades, that would be a game changer, he stated. But it's not just the identification of potential vaccines. We need to think even more about how they are manufactured on a global scale and distributed and administered to people. It's now part of the world we live in. He ominously concluded we're in an age of epidemics. Well, and here's something else to consider. In this rush to find a vaccine, how safe will the vaccine be? Because will they have time to properly test it before they start injecting people with it? Probably not. Anyway, meanwhile, health authorities here in the United States continue to reassure American public that there's absolutely nothing to worry about regarding the current coronavirus that's being reported, even as multiple confirmed cases are now being reported in Washington state, Texas, Illinois, and elsewhere. We don't want the American public to be worried about this because their risk is low. Says who? And not who? World Health Organization. I'm saying, who's saying it's not? Why don't you ask some of these people that are, well, you can't ask them because they've dropped dead. If it's not anything to worry about. No, nothing to worry about. They've just been talking about reducing the world population for how long now? Have they planned it? Prince Charles wanted to come back as a deadly virus that would wipe out or just about wipe out mankind. I mean, these people are sick. Anyway, on the other hand, we're taking this very seriously and are dealing very closely with Chinese authorities. To keep up with the latest corona news, be sure to check out Outbreak News. Now, I hadn't heard about that. That's something that I'm going to, let's go check it out. At least I'll bring it up. Well, I'm going to check that out for you guys. Not right now, but I will. Now, all right, let's come back here. Now, let's look at this. How China's hiding true numbers of the coronavirus deaths. And they are. All right, this is how China is hiding the true number of coronavirus deaths as the world's cortisol and stomach acid levels rise every hour in parallel with the number of officially reported coronavirus infections and deaths, which as of Saturday morning was roughly 1,400. Oh, I don't believe that. I believe what is coming out from the doctors that are there, and it's exponentially larger than that. The world has an unpleasant flashback to 2003 when for weeks Beijing would lie and hide the full extent of the SARS epidemic to avoid risking a social panic. To be sure, this time China has done its best to pretend it has learned from the past, and it is so transparent, even President Xi Jinping warned that the country is facing a grave situation and that the spread of the deadly virus is accelerating after holding a special government meeting on the Lunar New Year public holiday. After staying largely silent in public about the outbreak since it first emerged in central China last month, Xi on Saturday convened a special meeting of the 7-member Politburo Standing Committee calling for a more centralized response to the epidemic and asserting personal responsibility in addressing the crisis. When an epidemic breaks out, a command is issued. It is our responsibility to prevent and control it, Xi said. According to the state-run Xinhua news agency, I'm probably mangling that, he called for the new high-level committee to address concerns within and outside the country, indirectly referencing mounting global concern about the epidemic, which Mr. Xi described as a grave situation that was accelerating. We definitely can win the battle to contain the epidemic, he vowed. I don't believe so. I don't believe they're winning the battle at all, because first it was Wuhan. Now, I'm not sure how many cities are locked down right now, but it's over 50 million people. I know that's a drop in the bucket compared to China's overall population, but it's a lot of people. It's a lot of people. What is my cat ruining now? Something. Hard to tell. But he did, that's Xander. Xander did break my terrarium last night. Glass and dirt everywhere. But I love him. Yeah. Okay. Now, let me see. That remains to be seen, as reported earlier in China, which has put over 56 million people on lockdown quarantine. 56! The coronavirus has killed at least 41 people. Pfft, right. Yeah, they do all that for 41 people. Sure. And infected over 1,400 in China. Ominously, A UK researcher predicted that the coronavirus would infect over 250,000 people in China in under 2 weeks, which has sparked a renewed fear that China will once again try to underrepresent the true severity of the diseases until it's too late. The problem is that even as China theatrically pretends to be so forthright about the extent of the epidemic, if only to avoid panic and chaos over allegations, it is again hiding the full impact of the disease, which it is. It is doing precisely that, and now we know just how it is doing that. Instead of putting down coronavirus as the cause of death for an unknown number of Wuhan casualties, China coroners and hospitals merely ascribe death to viral pneumonia. Right. So I don't know how we could look up the amount of people dying from viral pneumonia in Wuhan. That would be interesting. I don't know where we could get that information though, but it would be interesting. Here's how the Wall Street Journal describes this treacherous bait and switch. A 53-year-old fitness trainer died on Wednesday after checking into a hospital in Wuhan a little more than a week earlier, said his niece. His family had expected the death certificate to reflect the deadly coronavirus because as his condition deteriorated, his doctors told his family he was suffering from an untreatable virus in his lungs. Instead, it recorded severe pneumonia as the cause of death. She said the relatives of 2 other people who died in separate hospitals in Wuhan this week also described similar situations, saying the cause of death had been given as viral pneumonia. So when they're saying, what did they say, 46 or whatever died, that's people that probably died before the pneumonia could kick in, maybe, because that's, if they're dying from pneumonia, they're calling it viral pneumonia. They're not calling it death from coronavirus. So we have no idea, none, how many people have truly died. All right, why did the hospital do this? Because as the relatives of all 3 now dead people said, the deceased hadn't been included in China's official count of 41 deaths attributed to coronavirus. And that's how China is suppressing the full extent of nCoV's lethality and keeping the mortality rate of the coronavirus artificially low. There are more likely to be many times more cases in Wuhan than officially confirmed. Yes, I was told it was around 112,000 that had died. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but it's probably a whole lot more true than 41 deaths, because we know that the people that are dying from viral pneumonia, which it's a mystery virus in their lungs that they died from, viral pneumonia, it's coronavirus. That's the mystery. But they're not going to say that on the death certificate. Anyway, so there are he said this person, Jonathan Reed, said a disease modeler at Imperial College London, who echoed the forecast of Jonathan Reed and estimated as many as 4,000 people may have been infected in Wuhan. Clearly, the hospitals are overwhelmed. That's what's worse is that if there are indeed 4,000 injected already, then the previously discussed catastrophic forecast of 250,000 cases by February 4th may be overly optimistic by half. Yeah. So the official numbers are far lower, of course. On Saturday morning, local time, the numbers confirmed global infections had risen to at least 1,438, nearly doubling from the previous day. Comically, China has said it would hold officials accountable for any delays or omissions in reporting cases. So far, such threats appear to have been had precisely zero impact on anyone. Others have confirmed, as much as the Wall Street Journal reports. Some Chinese media with reporters on the ground in Wuhan have said they have found cases that weren't included in the official reporting. Cakesin, a business journal, reported in early January that a doctor in Wuhan had been infected 11 days before officials confirmed that medical staff had been infected. The Beijing News, a newspaper, reported this week that many patients weren't officially labeled as carrying the new virus, even though their doctors and nurses said they were. So I'm not going to read all of this. It just goes through examples, but that is exactly how they are covering this up. So it says, as hundreds, if not thousands, of Wuhan residents die due to severe pneumonia instead of coronavirus, one can't help but wonder if, once the true cause of death is reported, instead of a 4% mortality rate as calculated by Dr. Jonathan Reed, the coronavirus epidemic won't be double digits. SARS was 11%, making this one of the most deadly epidemics in history. Incidentally, yeah, that's that. Not this is going into the SARS outbreak, and that is old news. All right, now let's go back here because there's more. In fact, there's so much more that we won't get to it all tonight, but I'll try to get the. Now, I think we covered this before, that they connect China's Wuhan virus to covert biological warfare laboratory. I better click on it because it is important. Come on there. We don't have all night. Okay, Israeli biological warfare expert connects China's Wuhan virus to covert biological warfare laboratory. An Israeli biological warfare expert is linking China's deadly Wuhan virus to China's covert biological warfare laboratories. It's believed that the Wuhan Institute of Virology is where the disease may have originated. And I don't know if you're following this, but out west, there was a situation where a couple of microbiologists were escorted off of a laboratory that studies these types of diseases, and it is kind of thought that they were sending information back to Wuhan. So I don't know. That's going to be an interesting story to follow for sure. An Israeli biologist warfare expert by the name of Danny Shoham, who is now with the Begin Sadat Center for Strategic Studies at Bar Ilan University, I'm probably massacring these names, but believes that the deadly Wuhan virus is more likely connected to one of China's covert biological warfare laboratories, in this case, the Wuhan Institute of Virology. While there is a lot of speculation at this point, there are several truths that validate his concern. Shoham stated, certain laboratories in the institute have probably been engaged in terms of research and development in Chinese biological weapons, at least collaterally, yet not as a principal facility of the Chinese BW alignment. Danny Shoham was a lieutenant colonel and a senior analyst with the Israeli military intelligence for biological and chemical warfare, and he unquestionably states that biological tests that were run in these laboratories are covert. In addition to his suspicions, the U.S. State Department believes that China has been partaking in covert biological operations as well, though China is denying any rumors of involvement. Well, naturally they would. The State Department issued a report in 2019 stating that information indicates that the People's Republic of China engaged during the reporting period in biological activities with potential dual-use applications, which raises concerns regarding its compliance with the BWC, the report said, adding that the United States suspects China failed to eliminate its biological warfare program as required by the treaty. The United States has compliance concerns with respect to Chinese military medical institutions, toxin research and development because of the potential dual-use applications and their potential as a biological threat. Thus far, the virus has killed at least 41 people. Yeah, those were the only 41 people that didn't get pneumonia from it, I guess, because all the rest just died of pneumonia, just viral pneumonia. People are just dropping dead of viral pneumonia everywhere. Has nothing to do with the coronavirus. Right. Okay, so let's go back. I want to get to at least the important stuff. Well, it's all important. What am I talking about? All right, and let's look at this. A little bit of disinfo. Okay, now look at this person. They are now I think that this is mistranslated because it's saying this is a patient who had a fever of 120 degrees Fahrenheit in the Wuhan hospital a few days ago, convulsing. Well, now I don't have any, there is a high fever associated with this, and high fevers can cause you to convulse, but I've never heard of a fever of 120, and I don't even think it exists. So that's probably a bad translation. Now, if you are a doctor or a nurse and know otherwise, please correct me in the comments below. Really, and there's people out there like trolls saying, well, how do you know that's not staged? Like, these are coming from all over, not just one or two accounts. There's pictures all over of people dropping in the streets. They're saying, oh, well, it looks fake to me. I think they staged that. Oh my gosh. Have the brains of flies. No, I think flies are far smarter. All right, so let's come back here and I put here, really? Less dangerous than the flu? Yeah, I've never convulsed with the flu. Have you? Just saying. All right. Now, let's get into this because we can. All right. And this is a quote from somebody we already read, Dr. Eric Feigl-Ding. Holy Mother of God, the new coronavirus is a 3.8. How bad is that reproductive R naught value? It is thermonuclear pandemic level bad. Never seen an actual virality coefficient outside of Twitter in my entire career. I'm not exaggerating. And let me see here. This may not have been the one that... No, this isn't what I wanted. We've already looked at most of this, I believe. Yes, we have. We don't need to look at it again because we're smart. We got it the first time, right? I know. You guys are quick. All right. Now, let's look at this by the Lant Chronicle. Coronavirus spreading all over the world. New cases in Australia, Hong Kong, US, Malaysia, France, Japan. Oh, and Canada. That's not listed, but it's there. Wuhan on lockdown, building second hospital. China quarantines 50 million people in 17 cities. Yeah, it's around 56 now, I think. 17 cities. Interesting. Can you imagine 17 cities being quarantined? How is this going to affect China? How is it going to affect them economically? How's it going to affect them socially? All of this. They don't have enough doctors. They don't have enough masks and things that they need. I think it's catastrophic already. And you may say, oh, no, it's not that big a deal. Well, you're not there. If you were living in Wuhan, I think you would have a completely different opinion. Completely different. Let's just say you're quarantined to your house. You can't use your car that's sitting in the garage because personal transportation is outlawed. You can't get on a city bus because there are no city buses anymore. You can't go down to the train station. No trains running. You can't go to the airport. Well, first of all, how do you get there unless you walk? And then even if you did walk, would be no use because the airport's closed. And what if you need groceries? Well, the grocery stores are closed because it takes people to run the grocery store and they're all at home too. And some of them are sick. And what do you do? Really, what do you do? They've probably, because I've noticed a huge decrease in the information getting out of Wuhan, they've probably cut off the internet. Now, I don't know that for a fact, but it wouldn't surprise me at all. Would it surprise you? They don't want this stuff getting out. And the army has moved in to enforce all this. It's pretty scary. Yeah. And it says China, Wuhan to build a second designated hospital to treat coronavirus. And yeah, I'm sure they do that just for 46 people dead. I'm sure they need a whole other hospital, don't they? Right, 46 dead, and they're building 2 new hospitals expected to be done in 6 days. Gee, that's a lot of hospitals for just 46 people dead. I'm just saying. Call me crazy. You wouldn't be the first. Okay, now let's look at this. We got more. Yes, more. There's always more. Weeks before lockdown, Wuhan authorities used refrigerating strategy to downplay coronavirus. Now, let's see what this is talking about. This from the Globe and Mail. This is Canada. Yeah. Now, the Globe and Mail, it used to be good, but everything's owned in Canada now. As Chinese authorities widened a massive urban lockdown and flew large numbers of medical personnel to Wuhan, the epicenter of a new SARS-like virus, medical authorities provided new indication that weeks of inaction had allowed the virus to spread widely before serious measures were taken. Chinese authorities initially reported that the new 2019 nCoV coronavirus had most seriously affected the elderly and those left vulnerable by pre-existing health conditions. But an academic study published by Chinese researchers in the Lancet on Friday found that the first 41 confirmed cases of the virus, which causes pneumonia-like symptoms, less than half had underlying diseases, nearly half were 49 years of age or younger, and a third had not been exposed to the wild animals market identified as the source of the virus, suggesting that even from the earliest days it had begun to leap between people. Now, 15%, okay, 15% of those first 41 people died. Well, how do we know that? Because, they probably reported some of those people died from pneumonia. We are concerned that the 2019 nCoV would have acquired the ability for efficient human transition, warned the paper's authors, who included dozens of doctors from hospitals in Wuhan and major state institutes for infectious disease research. The first of the patients was admitted. Okay, we don't care about that. What are they talking about refrigerating it? And it's talking about the people that have died. Yes. All right. Shanghai ordered public, in Beijing, authorities suspended long-distance bus service and official churches and mosques. Oh, yes, that's the other thing. You're not allowed to gather in public. There's no, well, I don't even know if they have actual church in China because it's the church, the real church is underground. Yeah, you can't gather in public places anymore because you're going to spread the virus. So in Beijing, they suspended long-distance bus service and official churches and mosques suspended services. The capital city also began temperature screening at subway stations for all arriving passengers at the city's 2 international airports. But what good is that doing? Because you can be affected and not have a temperature. So is that really effective? No, might screen some, but there's going to be people that get through. Lots of people that get through. Shanghai ordered public transit staff to wear masks, barred schools from holding large events, and said officials would not approve marriage registrations on February 2nd, a popular date because it creates a palindrome when written in numeric form. Hong Kong suspended all trains and flights from Wuhan, where authorities said they could ban the use of vehicles outside except free buses and official travel beginning Sunday. Hong Kong has also canceled Lunar New Year celebrations and will keep schools closed until mid-February. In China's Henan province, a popular winter tourist destination, all tourists arriving from Hubei province, where Wuhan is the capital, will be subject to medical observation for 14 days. Didi, the Uber-like ride-sharing service in China, required all drivers to wear masks. But, as we've said before, the masks aren't effective either. But even top officials with the Communist Party acknowledge that their efforts have yet to halt the progression of the virus. The virus has not been blocked and it is spreading. Sun Chunlan, a Politburo member who is deputy prime minister of the state council, the country's cabinet, said in remarks reported by state media, she called for an even greater sense of responsibility and urgency. So, well, that doesn't tell us much that we didn't already know. So let's go. Not there. That's not where we want to go. Here's where we want to go. All right, and this Dr. Dina Grayson, China has a history of not accurately reporting outbreaks, so it's hard to know exactly what is happening, especially with no free press, internet, etc. China's massive response is very telling and strongly suggests that the coronavirus outbreak is very bad, especially in Wuhan. All right, and U.S. to evacuate its diplomats and 1,000 Americans from Wuhan, the epicenter of deadly coronavirus outbreak. And let's look at this picture right over here. And we've got a dump truck dumping, whatever, dirt, debris in the road to block traffic being able to get through. That's what they're doing. And here's some more pictures of the blockades that they are putting in place. Let's take a look at these. That's what they're doing. All the roads, they're dumping dirt. People can't get through. Cars can't get through. I guess you could walk through if you wanted to, but I'm sure that they're going to have soldiers there as well to make sure nobody gets in or out. And there is another road that they are blocking. And another, they've got trucks there blocking. And that one that we just saw. All right, now let's come back because I've got more pictures. All right, here is another picture of them blocking a roadway. And I guess we've already seen that one. All right. So that's what's happening over there. How would you like to be locked into your city with all the roads barricaded by dump trucks full of dirt and debris and stones? How would you like no public transportation, not being allowed to use your own personal transportation, not being allowed to gather in groups, and everything shut down? Schools are shut down, everything. I don't think if it was happening here, we would be dismissing it so lightly. All right, let's come back here. And this says Beijing just declared a first-level emergency response. All interstate transportation services going in and out of Beijing are suspended beginning tomorrow. No, I'm sure this is nothing. Nah, it's not worse than the flu. No, they regularly do things like this. Yeah, never, ever has there been a response like this. And yet we're being told over here, don't worry, it's like the flu. And these are the symptoms: coughing, fever, pneumonia, shortness of breath, vomiting, diarrhea. In advanced cases, the patient can have very serious complications which can lead to death, such as severe pneumonia and renal kidney failure. So those are the symptoms. Sound lovely, doesn't it? Now, I found this very interesting. 1720, there was a plague. 1820, there was a plague. 1920, there was a plague, because that was the Spanish flu. And 2020 is the coronavirus. How weird is that? Pretty weird, if you ask me. It's weird, and you're weird for thinking it's not weird. All right. Okay, All right, unverified, shocking video footage taken from inside the city of Wuhan of medical personnel treating elderly people under blankets, supposedly infected by the coronavirus, while fireworks are being shot in the air. Now, we don't understand the language, so there's no sense in me I'll put the sound on a little. There is no sound. But here we are. They're just laying in the street. There's no room in the hospitals. But you're right, it's not worse than the flu. Nah. It's awful. All right, now let's come back. No, really, let's. And now I copied this from a forum because I was out there trying to find some people that were either from there or had relatives there that were talking about this. But before I do that, let's go here because I can't remember what this is. Yeah, this is interesting. Expand your thinking. Optogenetic technology is literal mind control via light combined with a GMO receptor cell, which can be introduced into the body on the back of a virus. 5G transmit, receive, coronavirus plus 5G in Wuhan, experiment, gone wrong. Now, this is very, very interesting. And this is a lot. I may have to really delve into this and do, because I intend to update this and keep updating what's happening with the coronavirus. But this is interesting because apparently there are more 5G transmitters in Wuhan than anywhere. I don't know. I need to verify all that. But I think that's where she's coming from. And it's pretty interesting. Because Central China province launches commercial 5G applications. And I don't know. Could this be an experiment that went wrong? It sure ain't natural, and it sure didn't come from the wet market. Now they're proving that now, that there's no, it didn't originate there. It came from a lab, which is like what? Just, I mean, it's very, very close to the epicenter. Very close to the epicenter, this lab. So, yeah. Anyway, I'm going to follow up on that as well and look into it a bit more. And Amazing Polly, I'm not sure if she's done a show on it or not, but you might want to check that out because that is where I'm finding that from. And I find her to be very trustworthy. So this I copied from a forum. This is it, the mother of all doom. I have a family member who works high up in Big Pharma who doesn't wear a tinfoil hat and is anti-conspiracy. He got in touch with me this morning over this outbreak in China, his news confirming what we are all fearing, that whatever we are facing is apocalyptic in nature, so much so he's sending me prep money and telling me it's right now, not tomorrow, not a week to get ready, and he's doing the same. The reality, this is chimera flu, genetically engineered for mass casualty and spread, a depopulation weapon of mass destruction, the thermonuclear equivalent of a viral DEFCON 1, and friends to whom I love on this forum who know we are now at a viral DEFCON 1 status, well beyond role play, beyond normalcy bias, and are in life or death planning stages. Either you prepare right now while things are still normal, while the mass hysteria hasn't set in, or that window to do so closes faster than anyone realizes. China is literally allowing 56 million people in quarantine to burn through this, and it looks like this quarantine is indefinite. Face that stark, grim reality because that is today. Tomorrow and what follows, more countries will likely do the same once people start to see randoms, friend and family, drop where they stand like they are in China, and the grim truth that cannot hide any longer is at your doorstep. We are dealing with a weapon of mass destruction, a genetically modified bioweapon that leaked from the Wuhan laboratory. That is fact, not fiction, not tinfoil hat material. We are past the point of no return on this issue. It's here, it's spreading faster than anything previously known to man, and it's going to kill people. Accept that. Millions, if not billions, of people are going to die in the next coming months. Society is going to collapse globally. Transport, airports, food flow, medicine, packed hospitals will be death traps for those foolish enough to get tested in the beginning out of the fear, while the infected will do their job and spread this killer chimera flu. It is symptomless when it spreads. You don't know who has it until it has you. If you can start to shelter in place, work from home, consider that today, not tomorrow, not a week from now. I am doing this. I've got my first round of food prep. Next is a long-term prep, medical supplies, canning materials, seeding, treating this as long-term inevitability for the SHTF scenario, which I'm sure you realize is the shite hits the fan. We all know that the shite hits the fan, and it only gets worse from here. It can't get better. There is no cure. Yes, there is a treatment, but in reality, is the speed at which this is spreading will overwhelm the medical systems in every infected region once the payload kicks and people start to drop dead from that second phase of this engineered bioweapon. Get prepared. This is your last window of opportunity. I'm not trying to spread doom porn. Prepare now while you can, because there is no promise in the next coming weeks that we won't be in the same situation that is currently affecting 56 million people, and our grocery stores are bare. People are in quarantine, and worse, those we love dropping dead because they didn't listen, didn't believe, and allowed normalcy bias to prevent them from seeing the big picture of the actions China is taking to prevent further spread. Now, that's what I'm seeing in a big way, is normalcy bias. People are saying, you know, they're always saying something. It never happens. Well, tell that to the people in that died from the Spanish flu. Well, you can't, because they're dead. And even if they didn't die from the Spanish flu, they're still dead because they were born a long time ago. But really, people are just saying, this is nothing, it'll blow over. That's normalcy bias, because it's hard for us to take a leap and think that could happen. From what he says, based on this, on his info, there is no stopping this, and it will run its course. As to what that will be based on the nature of this virus, none of it is good. In his words, it's too late. It's time to prepare. Watch the stock market, he said. People are already pulling out. All the indicators are there. Those in the know are starting to do what I'm advising and getting themselves ready. Now, I can't vouch for this person. I don't know if they're saying the truth or just kind of doing this to get people riled up. I don't know. But from what we know, just think this through logically. There can't be that few number of deaths for them to be having the response that they're having in China. Number one. Number two, it's already spreading worldwide. Number three, we know, those of us that have been paying attention for the last several years know that the plan has been to reduce world population. What better way? So really, is it that far out there? And okay, let's say we prepare, we get extra food, we get some medical supplies in, and we prepare to the best of our ability, and then nothing happens. Well, we're prepared. I just don't see how this is that. It's not rocket science. And I don't, to me, it makes more sense that, do we really expect China to tell us the truth? Really? You really think China is going to tell the truth to the rest of the world of what's really going on? Because if you believe that, I've got some land in a swamp I'd like to sell you. It's good land. Swampy, but good. Now, Ontario officials say there is a presumptive positive test result for the coronavirus in Toronto. Man in his 50s had traveled to Wuhan, China, and fell ill and has returned to Canada. He is now in stable condition in Sunnybrook Hospital. Whoo, Sunnybrook. That's where they send all the, that's a serious hospital there. And I don't know. We'll have to see what happens there. There's a massive Chinese population in Toronto, and these are not poor Chinese people. These are people that travel back and forth. So, yeah. Now, I've got a lot more here, but I know we're getting kind of late here, and I still have another video to do, so I want to get this uploaded. But before we go, I want to show you this. And this is just what I've been finding. This is a perfect example of disinfo. In the month and a half since the Wuhan coronavirus emerged as a new disease, it has killed 41 people so far. During that same time period, the common flu has killed almost 80,000. We must take all new diseases seriously and be vigilant while keeping everything in perspective too. Yeah, this isn't the common flu. And the common flu is worldwide. This is not worldwide yet. So you're comparing apples and tomatoes, really. So, all right. So that is it for this video. I'm going to sign off, get this uploaded, and I'm going to come back and get us caught up with Q. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for listening. I appreciate it. I am not going to apologize and say, for people that say, oh, you're just, you're getting fear porn out there. I'm not going to apologize. I'm not, because I would much rather sound the alarm and it not be needed than not sound it and it be needed. So, yeah, I can rest well tonight. I have, I'm trying to get sources from people that are actually there. And, for me, this is a big, massive, hairy deal. So there you go. Now, it's hard to go from that into being cheery. Well, have a good night, sleep well. Try not to worry, because I believe, certainly I have faith, and my trust is in the Lord and not in anything else, to tell you the truth. So I will prepare and put my trust in the Lord, and what will happen will happen. But, at least I'll be as prepared as I can be. All right. Okay, guys, that is it for tonight. I'm going to get this uploaded, and I will be back with Q, getting us updated on Q. Then tomorrow, hopefully, I'll be able to get us caught up on the news, and I'll be able to thank the people I need to thank. All right, guys. Good night. Stay safe. All right.